"You're too emotional for research, Maya. Science needs logic, not feelings." He said it like a compliment, but it felt like a verdict. I smiled back, because that's what women like me were trained to do in rooms full of men who thought passion was weakness. I was 29 when it happened, the year everything I believed in about fairness, friendship, and science was tested. The first time I stepped into the Harrington Institute for Molecular Research, I remember thinking, this is it. The hum of the machines, the sterile scent of ethanol, the cold glow of lab lights, it all felt like belonging, like a second skin. I wasn't from money, or from any of those Ivy League labs where professors were treated like gods. I'd clawed my way here with sleepless nights, failed experiments, and coffee that tasted like burnt hope. But I had something others didn't, an idea, and it wasn't just any idea. It came to me one night when I was sitting alone in the microscopy room. I'd been analyzing protein behavior related to cell regeneration, a field that could one day heal damaged organs without transplants. That night, when the data blinked in front of me, something clicked. A pattern, a rhythm, a small, nearly invisible protein behavior that no one had noticed before. I called it Project Nera. It was the kind of discovery that could rewrite textbooks, but more than that, it was mine, my years, my notebooks, my sleepless nights. And then came Lena Hartwell. She arrived 3 months after I joined Harrington. She was charming, quick with jokes, and brilliant at navigating people, not necessarily data. Where I was quiet, she was loud. Where I stayed up nights in the lab, she stayed up networking at conferences. We were opposites, but we made an efficient pair. She once told me, "You think too small, Maya. You want truth. I want impact." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Now I do. The day it all started, I was working on the protein sample that would later become the heart of Project Nera. Lena leaned over my workstation, chewing gum like she owned the place. "You're onto something big, aren't you?" she said, squinting at the monitor. "Maybe," I replied. "I need more time before I can say for sure." "You always say that," she teased. "You act like data is a person you have to earn trust from." "In a way, it is," I said without looking up. "If you listen long enough, it tells you the truth." She laughed. "God, you sound like a poet, not a scientist." I smiled, but part of me felt uneasy. It wasn't what she said, it was how she looked at my screen, not curious, hungry. Weeks passed, my idea grew. I was gathering data, writing drafts, and even planning to submit a preliminary report. Lena kept offering to help. Sometimes she'd take my notes to proofread. Other times she'd ask to back up my data on her drive. I didn't think much of it. We were colleagues. We were friends. Then one afternoon, while I was reviewing my protein models, I overheard something that changed everything. She was in the hallway, talking to Dr. Halpern, our department chair. Her voice carried through the glass door. "I think my team and I are ready to present the regenerative protein model next month," Lena said. "My model, my data." Dr. Halpern replied, "Excellent. Harrington could use a big win. You might even have a shot at the National Science Innovation Award." The air went out of my lungs. I stood frozen, hand trembling above the keyboard. At first, I thought I'd misheard her, that there had been some mix-up, that maybe she was talking about another project. But when I looked through the glass, I saw her, smiling, confident, shaking Halpern's hand, and I knew she was claiming Project Nera as her own. That night I went home and couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch staring at my laptop, rereading every email, every file name, every timestamp. I felt sick. My heart kept whispering, "Confront her," but my brain said, "Be careful." In research, accusations can end careers, especially if you're a woman. And Lena, she had people wrapped around her finger. The next morning, I walked into the lab and found her already there, smiling like nothing happened. "Hey, partner," she said. "You look tired late night." "You could say that," I said quietly. "Good," she said, turning back to her workstation. "You'll need your energy, big things ahead." Big things, she wasn't wrong. A week later, the official memo came. Project lead, Dr. Lena Hartwell, protein regeneration study. My name wasn't even listed in the contributors. I stared at that email for a full 5 minutes before I could breathe again. My hand shook so violently I had to put down my coffee. It was like watching your own reflection stolen from the mirror. I went straight to Dr. Halpern's office. "Sir, there's been a mistake," I said. "That project is Lena's. It's mine. I've been developing it for months." He looked up, surprised, then frowned. "Maya, I know you've been collaborating with her. Maybe there's some overlap, but Lena filed the official draft first." "Because she stole it," I said, my voice breaking. He sighed. "You're talented, Maya, but you're still new here. Let this go. It's not worth your career." I left his office in silence. For the first time in my life, science didn't feel like truth. It felt like politics. That evening, I called my mother. She's the kind of woman who believes in quiet strength, the kind that doesn't make a scene but makes history. I told her everything. "Maya," she said softly, "let her have the noise. Just make sure you keep the proof." "What proof?" I asked, exhausted. "The kind that speaks when you no longer can." I didn't understand what she meant, not yet. So I kept working, quietly, secretly, while Lena was rehearsing for her upcoming presentation, my presentation. I stayed up nights writing the technical documentation for the project, every formula, every graph, every time-stamped log. And then I filed it, a provisional patent under my name. Near a protein regenerative model, Maya R. Vance, principal author. I didn't tell anyone, not even Lena. At the time, it wasn't revenge. It was protection, a fragile shield against the world's noise. I thought it would be enough. It was. 3 weeks later, Lena walked onto the stage at the National Science Innovation Awards, in front of cameras, judges, and peers. She was radiant, wearing my data on her slides, my words on her lips, my discovery in her hands. And as I sat in the back of that auditorium, hidden behind the rows of applauding scientists, I heard her say, "This discovery will change regenerative medicine forever." And that's when it hit me. She didn't just steal my idea. She stole my voice. But here's the thing about science. Truth doesn't disappear. It waits, quietly, in data logs, in signatures, in patents. And 3 days later, the judges would see something on her submission that would make them call me in for a private meeting, and everything would change. "You think the truth protects you," she whispered. "In this world, it's not about being right, Maya. It's about being first." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just ambitious, she was dangerous. The night of the Innovation Awards ended with thunder, literal thunder, like the sky knew what had been taken from me. People were congratulating Lena, shaking her hand, calling her the future of regenerative science. And I sat at the edge of the crowd, invisible, watching her smile for cameras under the lights that should have been mine. Every photo felt like a stab. Every clap sounded like betrayal. When they announced her name as the winner, she turned slightly toward the audience, eyes sweeping over the crowd. For half a second, our eyes met. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look guilty. She just smiled, the kind of smile that says checkmate. Later that evening, I found myself in the hallway of the venue, standing in front of her dressing room door. My hands were trembling, my throat dry, but my anger was hotter than fear. I knocked, no answer. I opened the door. She was inside, still wearing the silver dress from the ceremony, holding the award like a trophy of war. "Well, if it isn't my favorite lab partner," she said, without even turning around. "Don't," I said quietly, "don't pretend this is okay." She turned, tilting her head. "Okay, Maya, I won, it's over." "You stole it." "Borrowed," she corrected, smiling. "You had the data, I had the platform. You should be thanking me. Now your work will actually matter." "My name isn't even mentioned anywhere," I snapped. She shrugged. "That's how the system works. You're new, I'm established. People trust me. If I'd said it was yours, no one would have listened." "You think that justifies it?" "I think it's reality." For a second, I couldn't speak. I felt the weight of all those nights. The hours of isolation, the joy of discovery, the notebooks filled with hope, crushed into silence by her calm cruelty. You can't erase me, I whispered. She smiled. Watch me. The next few days were a blur of headlines and interviews. Dr. Lena Hartwell wins National Science Innovation Award for Regenerative Protein Breakthrough. Everywhere I turned, TV, social media, even our institute's hallway screens, there she was, smiling, and not once did anyone mention me. At work, people whispered when I passed. Some offered pitying looks. Others avoided me altogether. It was like my name had become radioactive. Dr. Halpern barely made eye contact anymore. When I confronted him again, his voice was cold. You're walking on thin ice, Maya. Making accusations against a lead scientist could end your career. I'm not making accusations, I said. I have proof. Then show it. I hesitated. The patent wasn't public yet. It was still under review. It's in process, I said softly. He sighed. Come back when you have something concrete. Until then, focus on your assigned projects. That was it. I was dismissed like an intern making noise. Weeks passed. Lena's fame grew. She was invited to panels, podcasts, and conferences. Everywhere she went, she spoke about her discovery, the one she'd built on years of collaborative effort. Collaborative, the word burned. I'd stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and stare at my laptop, rereading old drafts just to convince myself it was real, that I had written those lines, that I had seen those patterns first. Some nights I'd draft long emails to the award committee, explaining everything, attaching data and timestamps, then delete them before hitting send. Because I knew how it would look. An emotional junior researcher claiming her superior stole her idea. No one would believe me. Then, one morning, everything changed. I got an email from the National Science Board. Dear Ms. Vance, we would like to discuss recent developments regarding the intellectual property registration of the project presented by Dr. Hartwell at the National Innovation Awards. Please confirm your availability for a meeting this Friday at 9:00 a.m. I read it 3 times, my chest tightened. They'd found something. I barely made it through the next few days. Every time Lena walked by me in the lab, I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Finally, Friday came. The meeting room was small, just a glass box with a single screen and a long table. 3 judges sat across from me. One of them, an older woman named Dr. Klein, spoke first. Ms. Vance, thank you for coming in. I'll be direct. We've reviewed the patent database, and it appears that a provisional application for the regenerative protein model was filed 2 weeks before Dr. Hartwell's submission, under your name. My stomach dropped. I nodded slowly. Yes, I filed it myself. Were you aware that Dr. Hartwell's presentation used the same protein sequence and language as your filing? Yes, I said, because she copied it. The room went quiet. Then Dr. Klein leaned forward. We'd like to request all original documentation of your work, lab logs, experiment records, emails. Can you provide that? Yes, I whispered, all of it. When I left the building that day, the world looked brighter. The air tasted like justice, fragile but real. But I knew Lena wouldn't go down quietly, and I was right. That night, she showed up at my apartment. I'll never forget the sound of her knocking, calm, rhythmic, like she wasn't scared at all. When I opened the door, she was standing there in a black coat, no smile this time. We need to talk, she said. There's nothing left to say. Don't be naive, she said, stepping inside uninvited. You think this little stunt will ruin me? The board won't risk scandal. They'll bury it just like they always do. They have proof, Lena. It's over. You still don't get it, she hissed. They need me. I'm the face of this project now. You're a footnote. She was close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her eyes. Her confidence was chilling, not arrogance, but conviction. She truly believed she was untouchable. Why? I asked. You already had success. You didn't need this. Need, she scoffed. You think this is about need. This is about power, Maya. You gave me gold and I refined it. That's what leaders do. She walked toward the door, then paused. "You'll regret this," she said. "No one ever wins by trying to humiliate me." The door clicked shut behind her. For a moment, I stood there in silence, shaking. Then I laughed, quietly, bitterly, because she still didn't understand. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was just taking back what was mine. The next week, whispers spread through the institute. The award committee had frozen Lena's title pending further investigation. She acted unfazed, still walking the halls like royalty. But I saw it, the flicker in her eyes when people stopped clapping. By Friday, the entire research department was buzzing. An email had leaked from the patent office. It contained one line that sent shockwaves through the building. Patent origin, Maya R. Vance, filed and timestamped prior to Dr. Hartwell's claim. The silence that followed was deafening. That night I sat alone in the lab, the same hum of the machines, the same sterile air, only this time it didn't feel like belonging, it felt like justice waiting to breathe. But I knew the story wasn't over yet, because the deeper they dug, the darker the truth became. And soon, what the judges discovered would not just expose Lena, it would destroy everything she'd built to hide who she really was. They say truth will set you free. But no one tells you how long you'll have to live in silence before it does. The investigation took weeks, weeks that felt like years. Every morning I walked into the Harrington Institute with my head down, feeling eyes on me. Some people avoided me, some whispered, and some, the worst kind, smiled sympathetically like they already knew I was doomed. Lena still came to the lab every day, still wore her white coat, still laughed too loudly. But the shine was fading. The warmth in her voice was replaced by something colder, desperation. I could see it in how she snapped at interns, how she double-checked her emails before sending them, how she'd pause when someone mentioned the investigation. She thought she could out-talk the truth, but data doesn't forget. I started getting emails from the award committee, asking for more evidence, timestamps, drafts, lab notebooks, everything. Every night, I'd sit at my dining table surrounded by piles of notebooks and hard drives. It wasn't just about proving she'd stolen my work. It was about reclaiming myself. Each page I scanned reminded me of the sleepless nights I'd spent chasing the impossible. Each handwritten formula whispered, "You were right all along." But there was something darker too, guilt. I'd started to wonder if, in trying to expose her, I was becoming someone else, someone colder, someone obsessed with justice more than peace. Because every time I pictured her downfall, I didn't just feel satisfaction. I felt fear. Fear that once it was over, I'd have nothing left. 3 weeks in, Dr. Halpern called me into his office. He didn't look angry this time, just tired. "Maya," he said quietly, "the board reached out to me. They're reviewing both your records and Dr. Hartwell." "And?" I asked. "And they're conflicted. She's denying everything. Claims you collaborated and she simply formalized the idea." "That's a lie." "I know," he said softly, "but you need to understand she's powerful. Her reputation is tied to the Institute's funding. If this goes public, it'll be ugly." He leaned back, exhaling. "If I were you, I'd settle quietly, accept co-authorship and move on." Co-authorship, the word tasted like rust. "You mean pretend she didn't steal it?" I said. "I mean survive, Maya. You can't win against people like her, not cleanly." That was the moment I realized. He wasn't protecting me, he was protecting the system. That night I walked home in the rain. No umbrella, just exhaustion. The city lights blurred into gold and gray streaks on the pavement, like the world itself didn't know which side it was on. I stopped by the river, leaning on the railing, and stared at my reflection. My mother called. "You sound tired," she said. "I'm fine." "No, you're not, tell me." I hesitated, then whispered. "They're asking me to settle, to share credit." She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Maya, there's a kind of peace that comes from letting go, but there's another that comes from standing your ground. Only one of them leaves you able to look in the mirror." Her words stayed with me. That night I made my decision. The next morning, I gathered every piece of evidence I had: the time-stamped experiment videos, the emails, the lab's electronic notebook entries. I even included the original microscopy images showing the first pattern discovery. I organized them in a folder titled Truth Log, Project NERA. Then I sent it to the National Science Board, the Patent Office, and the Harrington Ethics Committee. No turning back. The storm hit 3 days later. The Institute called an emergency meeting. Lena wasn't there at first, but her name was everywhere. A panel of 3 senior researchers stood at the front. One of them began. "We've concluded our internal review regarding the authorship of the regenerative protein model, also known as Project NERA." The air was so thick I could barely breathe. After comparing both researchers, submissions, digital records, and patent documentation, we found substantial evidence that Dr. Vance, he paused to look at me, was the original developer of the concept and data used in the awarded presentation. The room went silent. Someone dropped a pen. Then, quietly, he continued. "Effective immediately, the Institute will withdraw support for Dr. Hartwell's award claim pending legal review." For a moment, I didn't feel anything. Not victory, not relief, just silence. Then the door opened, and Lena walked in. Her hair was disheveled, eyes red, but she still had that sharpness about her, that refusal to yield. "This is absurd," she said, voice trembling. "You can't do this based on some overlapping data logs. Maya and I worked together." "The timestamps prove otherwise," one of the researchers interrupted. "You think she didn't backdate them?" she shot back. "She's been obsessed with this idea she'd do anything." Her eyes darted to me, venomous. "You wanted to destroy me because I got the credit first. Admit it." I stood slowly. "No, Lena, I wanted the truth. You're the one who couldn't handle it." For a heartbeat, the room froze, 2 women standing in the ruins of what used to be trust. And then she laughed, a hollow, breaking laugh. "You think you've won. You have no idea what you've started." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night I sat in the lab again, same chair, same hum, same loneliness, but something felt different, not lighter, just real. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt empty. Because the truth hadn't given me back my peace. It had only taken my anger, and without anger, all I had left was exhaustion. Days turned into weeks. The story broke quietly in science circles. Ethics Review suspends award after authorship dispute. Some believed me, some didn't. Most didn't care. But one morning, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the U.S. Patent Office. "Dear Dr. Vance, we're pleased to inform you that your provisional application for Project NERA has been approved for full patent registration. Your intellectual property is now protected under federal law." My hands shook as I held it. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't glory. It was validation. But the story wasn't over, because 1 week later, I received another email, this time from the National Science Board. "Dear Dr. Vance, during our review of the award submission, we discovered discrepancies in the supporting data files provided by Dr. Hartwell. Several sequences appear to have been manipulated or falsified. We request your cooperation in a follow-up hearing regarding potential research misconduct." Falsified, not stolen, fabricated. Lena hadn't just stolen my idea, she built it on lies. And that discovery would unravel everything, not just her career, but the powerful network that had protected her. "Truth doesn't just expose one person," my mother once said. "It exposes everyone who helped them hide it." And soon, that's exactly what would happen. Because what the investigation uncovered next wasn't just about a stolen project. It was about corruption at the highest level of the Institute, and the name that came up beside Lena was one I never expected. You can bury the truth for a while, but roots always find their way back to the surface, especially when they were planted in pain. When the email about the second hearing came, I almost didn't go. I thought I was done, said all I needed to say. but something deep inside whispered, "Go see how it ends." The conference room was smaller this time. No cameras, no journalists, just 6 people from the National Science Board, a lawyer from Harrington Institute, Lena, and me. She looked different now, pale, thin. The confidence that once clung to her like perfume was gone. But when she saw me, she still managed a smirk. "Congratulations, Maya," she said quietly. "You got what you wanted." "Did I?" I asked, because it doesn't feel like a victory. She didn't answer. The head investigator, Dr. Klein, cleared her throat. "We'll begin. Over the past 2 weeks, we've reviewed both Dr. Hartwell's award submission and her supporting laboratory data. We also cross-referenced her documentation with Dr. Vance's original records." The room was silent, except for the shuffle of paper. "Our findings indicate that several datasets in Dr. Hartwell's files were altered, specifically the microscopy readings and regression analyses." Lena's lawyer immediately stood up. "Altered doesn't mean falsified. There could have been calibration errors." Dr. Klein cut her off. "We also found that those same falsified sequences were created after Dr. Vance had submitted her patent. The metadata confirms it." Lena froze. Her lawyer glanced at her, then looked down. "Dr. Hartwell," Klein continued, "can you explain why multiple datasets from your award presentation show evidence of manual editing, including inserted results that did not appear in the original files?" Lena's voice was a whisper. "You don't understand. It wasn't just me." That made everyone stop. "What do you mean?" Klein asked. Lena hesitated, then looked directly at me. "Halpern," she said finally. "He told me to finalize the model before the deadline. He said if I didn't have clean results, he'd pull the funding. So I made them cleaner." The room erupted in whispers. Halpern, the same man who told me to let it go. My stomach dropped. Dr. Klein spoke again, slower now. "Are you saying Dr. Halpern was aware of this falsification?" "He didn't say it outright," Lena replied, voice trembling. "But he knew. He told me to make the data work. I just wanted to keep my job." The hearing ended in chaos. By the next morning, word had spread through the institute. Dr. Halpern was placed on administrative leave pending investigation, and Lena, her award was revoked. The press called it the biggest ethics scandal in biomedical research that year. For weeks, my inbox flooded with requests for interviews, podcasts, think pieces, but I said nothing. I'd spent so long trying to prove the truth, I didn't need to explain it anymore. A few days later, I got a message from Dr. Klein. "We've finalized the report. You're cleared, officially recognized as the original researcher and patent author. Congratulations, Dr. Vance." For a while, I just stared at that message, not smiling, not crying, just breathing. Then I packed my things from the lab, not because they asked me to leave, but because I was done with that place. Done with fluorescent lights and whispered politics, done with people who called betrayal ambition, done with mistaking silence for strength. 3 months later, I started at a small research foundation in Boston, the kind that didn't care about awards, just results. They gave me my own team, my own space, my own name on the door. The first time I wrote Dr. Maya R. Vance, principal investigator, I almost laughed because it felt unreal. Sometimes at night, I still think about Lena, where she is, what she's telling herself to sleep at night. I heard she left the country. Some say she's consulting overseas. Others say she quit science altogether. But that's not my story to tell anymore. One evening, while cleaning my new lab, I found an old USB drive, one of the backups Lena used to carry around. For a second, I thought about throwing it away. But then curiosity won. I plugged it in. Most of the files were empty, deleted, but one text file remained. It was dated the week she'd presented at the awards. It read, "If she ever finds out, I'll tell them the truth. It started as hers. But somewhere along the way, I started to believe it was mine." I stared at that line for a long time. Because buried beneath all the lies and greed was something almost human, a confession maybe, or a wound. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry, I just felt sad. They say revenge is sweet, but the truth is it's heavy. It doesn't taste like victory, it tastes like peace you had to bleed for. A few months later, Project NERA was published under my name, not on a stage, not with applause, just a quiet entry in a scientific journal where it belonged. No spotlight, no speeches, just truth, immortalized in data. One day, a new intern asked me, "Dr. Vance, how did you come up with the NERA model?" I smiled. "It wasn't just a discovery," I said. "It was a reminder that what's yours can be taken, twisted, paraded around. But if you built it with integrity, it will always find its way home." She nodded, not really understanding, and went back to her notes. And that was fine. Because the lesson wasn't for her, it was for me. You can steal credit, you can steal applause, but you can't steal creation, because the moment it's born in your hands, it already knows your name.